Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision and part two of the Wholesome Cement operations at Devil's Slide. This is a part two of a two-part series. Part one was posted last week about this time. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And it featured the movement of the train from Ogden and the Riverdale Staging Yard. From there, moving eastward to Devil's Slide. We did some switching operations down at Wholesome Cement. And now we're at the point where we're pulling out of Wholesome Cement all of the loaded cars. And we will not be taking all of these with us, so we have a little bit of operations to do here, sorting the cars that we're taking and the cars that we're going to put back at Wholesome Cement. Hope everyone will remember to subscribe and like this video, add comments. That would be very helpful. And become a member. That would be the most awesome thing that you could do. Really appreciate that. And as I said, we're going to be sorting these cars here a little bit. Once we get them sorted out to the cars that we need to take with us, then we'll put our train back together and then continue eastward towards Emory through the Echo Canyon area and then up the Wasatch Grade to the Wasatch Summit and then to Evanston and our termination point, which will be the Evanston Yard. Now I have switched over all of the couplers to KD couplers, but I haven't quite done all the Walthers couplers yet. So I got all the scale trains and the McHenry that's used by Athearn off. I still have some of the Walthers. I've kind of left them on because they're actually pretty good couplers. I have the least problem with them compared to all the other non-KD couplers. But one thing that you did see there is that they're a little difficult to uncouple still. So I'll probably eventually replace all of the Walthers as well. All right, but anyway, we're setting on the siding track all the cars that we're going to be taking with us, and then we're setting on the spur track that goes down to Wholesome Cement. On that track we're going to set the cars that will end up going back to Wholesome Cement, and they'll be picked up by a later train that's going to be moving westbound. This video is shot in 4K, so if you have a chance to get this put on a television, definitely will look a lot better. I was doing some research on the stats for my channel, and I was surprised to find out that 25% of the viewers watch the video on their TV. And I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought most of them would be on their phones. And then maybe some computers, but which is probably still the case. But I was surprised that up to that 25%, actually it's 26%, the people watch it on their TV. So I'm going to try and do more 4K videos. So if you are watching on your TV, it'll look spectacular, hopefully. My camera can actually do 8K, but I'm not sure if YouTube supports 8K. One thing I want to mention also, I've started a Twitter account. I haven't done Twitter for a long time, but I did start a Twitter account. I might be posting some things during the week on Twitter. I think I might incorporate some member types of things so that they can see what's going on and interact with me a little bit on Twitter. That's if they are a member on YouTube. Kind of have to wait and see how that all works out. But I'm going to start posting some things midweek on Twitter and get a chance to interact more with people who follow the channel. All right, so here we got some more cars that are going to be going back to Wholesome Cement. I think we're going to be adding a couple more here yet. My uncoupling pick is basically a skewer with a electrical wing nut that's used to connect two wires together. It works out really well. I saw that, I think it was on Ron's Trains and Things. I think I saw that idea there. It's not my own idea. I think he had that. One thing I do is I drilled a little hole in the fascia, and so when I'm not using it, I push it into the hole, and that way it'll be there for the next time. So every place where there's some operations to be done, I have a spot for a coupling skewer to be placed, and people will have them handy. So don't want people to carry them with them. Instead, leave the uncoupling tool at the location. All right, so these are the cars that we're going to be taking with us. And it's going to turn out that that tank car is going to be at the head end of the train. But it turns out it's not a volatile chemical tank car. It does not have a hazard warning label. If we get a good shot of the tank car, I'll kind of point out what I'm talking about. So this particular tank car does not have anything that's hazardous, so it can go at the head end of the train, which it will once we get things put back together. All right, so these are all loaded cars, as I mentioned, and we have the ones that we're taking with us on the siding, and we're going to go ahead and put these back. I want to thank all of the people who commented, especially the professionals, the professional engineers, professional railroaders who had some really good comments on the use of signals and track and time and so on. I think kind of what I gathered from what was posted is that if you have a control point, you very seldom, if ever, have a crew given track and time. I think the only people who get track and time at a control point is maintenance way trains. So I think definitely going to try and move towards having this coordinated with the dispatcher here at Devil's Slide. So we'll kind of try and do that as much as possible. I know a lot of times the operators and dispatcher just want to just go ahead and give track and time. It makes it a little bit easier, but I'd like to be as prototypical as possible. So if the prototype railroads don't do track and time at control points, I'm going to try and stay away from it. Also, got a little bit of a good idea as far as the signals also. Doesn't look like signals are needed as far as the dwarf signals. As long as there's permission granted by the dispatcher, I think that probably would be okay. I think I'm going to leave them in, though, just because I think it kind of helps it better as far as communication between the crew and the dispatcher. So our train's going to go ahead and stop here, and there would be some communication with the dispatcher, and then the dispatcher would give them the flashing red to go ahead and come back into the control point. So now it's going from the siding onto the actual plant, or the interlocking, or the control point, whatever the terminology is. So that flashing dwarf signal there would be restricting or making sure trains don't come onto that control point unless they have permission. Now, however, here I think I'm going to add another dwarf signal here. That's one thing someone told me, is that they would not use the flashing red at the top there. Instead, they would use a Now, for this movement, it would be a flashing red because it's going straight through. But in the previous video, we had a move going from that track onto the control point and then into the siding. And in that particular case, there would be a dwarf signal right by the regular signal there, and then that would be flashing red to indicate that it's going to go into the control point and then into the siding. Now here's something the dispatcher could give track and time for this particular turnout, since it is outside of the control point. For what I understood from the comments is that track and time could be given on a CTC, centralized traffic control, which is what this layout has. So if you have a CTC layout, you can give track and time between control points, but not for the control point itself. So here again, we would need to get a flashing red here, which we do have. And then we're going to go back onto the control point and onto the main line. And we're going to be connecting back up to our train. There are going to be some pretty cool movements once we get going here. Some pretty interesting signal indications. And once we get connected back up here, you can see the rest of our train down the line there. This definitely will be a lot more fun once this all has scenery. But that's going to be a while yet. This Sunday, I am going to have some more scenery done for this Sunday. So make sure you stay tuned for the update coming up Sunday. I'm going to be doing some scenery work on the upper level at West Vaco and east of West Vaco. Alright, that's kind of on a curve there. Plus it's a Walthers coupler, so it didn't quite couple up, but we were able to give it a little bit of a nudge, so it is all coupled up. As you can see now, we do have the tank train, but there's a little triangle placard on all tank cars, and if it's a hazardous material in the tank cars, then you would have a red warning label there, and you could be able to the crew would know whether or not it is volatile and hazardous, and whether or not it can be at the head end of the train. This particular one is not labeled as hazardous, so it can go at the head end of the train. And once again, you can see the dispatcher's panel and the two trains. We are 5119, and we have a train coming in the same direction. Now, here's some pretty cool signals. For us, we have a yellow over red, which means we can approach and go up to the next signal. The other train has a double yellow, or double donuts, they call it, I guess. That means it can approach the next signal, but then at the next signal, it's going to have a crossover. So when you have a double yellow like that, it means you go straight through, and then the next control point is going to be a crossover. We'll see here, I think in a little bit, we'll also have a yellow over flashing red, which is pretty interesting. Now, as you can see, if you watch the dispatcher's panel, we've gone through the Devil Slide control point, and we are now on the main one between Devil Slide and Emory. That's as far as we have authority to go towards. That main line is divided into two separate blocks. That's why it's there twice, because of that turnout there. And we do have a train 3728 that's coming up behind us. It has authority to go past Devil's Slide. That's why it had the double yellow. And then it will be crossing over at Emory. So this is a left-hand running railroad from Ogden to the flyover. So the train that's passing us up is a stack train. So it crossed over at Morgan, got onto the right-hand track 2, main 2, and you can see it there now passing us up. It's coming up. We're coming to a stop here slowly while it's running at about 25 miles per hour and passing us up. We are completely out of the Devil's Slide. Now I need to add some more resistor wheels to the unit trains. I did like every third car. I need to do every other car or every car on the unit trains. So if you notice, the Devil's Slide went vacant there for a little bit. That's because some of the cars were missing resistor wheel sets, so that they were not detected. So we are still, the stack train is still in the Devil's Slide control point. It did clear main 2 between Morgan and Devil's Slide. And now it's coming up on Emory. And you can see it does have a red over flashing yellow, which means it will be crossing over here. And then we'll be able to go through on the next control point. Again, this could be really definitely a lot better looking and a lot more fun once we get the scenery done in through here. There's going to be a road along the main line here at Emory. This is going to be the Echo Canyon, which will be some pretty cool scenery. This is an international stack train, which means the containers are 45 feet or shorter. Again, at the dispatcher's panel, you can see what crossed over at Emory. It's still in the Emory control point. As you can see here, the locomotive's just about. The DPU unit that's redundant. The DPU is just leaving the control point. That's an actual photograph of Castle Rock area on the backdrop. I was really happy with the way that turned out. Those are pictures my wife and I took while we were out in Wyoming and Utah. So it's completely in the on Main 1 between Emory and Wasatch. Is coming up on the Wasatch Summit, and you can see it's crossed over now. It's a right-hand running railroad. Definitely looks better with scenery. Right, here we have yellow over red, which means we can go at least to the next control point. It definitely will be continuing on as it goes all the way to North Platte. All right, so we waited for the stack train to get all the way past Evanston, and then the dispatcher was able to give us clearance to go through Emory, and we have clearance. If you can see all the green arrows, green on the dispatcher's panel, we have authority to go from just west of Emory all the way to the Evanston Yard at the West Evanston entry point. Yard entry at milepost 917. All right, again on the dispatcher's panel, you can see that we're into the Emory control point, and now also on the main between Emory and Wasatch, and coming up on the flyover. This is modeled after the prototype. There is an actual flyover where one main line does cross over the other. This train is pulled by an Athearn SD70, an Athearn Genesis SD70, and an Athearn Ready to Run SD60. Here's another photograph that I took while out in Wyoming, and then put it on the backdrop. Still need to do some work on some clouds in the sky. There's some scratches in the sky, so I need to kind of cover that up with some clouds, hopefully. Again, now you can see we're on the right hand running once we went over the crossover. You can notice our stack train is up on the second level. It is right now it's at Granger, and it still has to go through West Vaco and then eventually Peru and then into the Helix and Green River. All right, we're coming up on the Wasatch Summit and the Wasatch Control Point. Milepost 927. That's 927 miles from Omaha. Now here you can see we have a yellow over flashing red. That means approach restricting. So it means we can approach to the next control point, and then we also know that at the next control point we will have a restricting move into the yard. So we're going to be crossing over into the yard. There's some more photographs that I used. And then in Evanston itself we also have some photographs, but still need to add scenery at that location. This is the UTLX repair facility, which needs some paint, obviously, you can see. But I do have the ballast done and some scenery down here. We come across a little crossing. Over the next month or so, I'm hoping to get all this area here at Evanston. Here you can see the on the upper level, the stack train just went through the West Vaco control point. So it's on the upper level, and then our train is coming into the Evanston. You can see some more photographs that I'm going to be using for the backdrop, and we do have a red over flashing red, which means we are at restricted speed coming into the yard. So we're slowing down and taking the crossover into the Evanston Yard. This is the termination point for this train. Once it pulls into the yard and the locomotives are moved into the locomotive facilities, the yard crew will then begin breaking the train down and sorting it for upcoming trains for tomorrow or in a couple days. You can see some more photographs. That's the actual roundhouse that's in Evanston. So I was happy to be able to include that. And then you saw a passenger train, a passenger car and a caboose there. That also is in Evanston. Going to still do some little work to kind of tie in everything. Have some containers already that I'm using for hiding some seams and so on. But the stack train now is coming to Peru and heading into the helix while we slowly come to a stop as we pull our train into the yard. We have to pull it far enough forward so that it is completely clear of the crossover and completely off the main and in the yard. There you can see Peru, which is the last control point on the east end of the layout, and then the helix. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video as well as part 1. If you haven't seen part 1, definitely go back and see that. That was posted last week. Update will be coming up on Sunday with some scenery, I promise. I'm not going to break my promise this time. Scenery update on Sunday. Stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.